Hey everyone, so here is our Windsor real estate market update for the weekend of July 15th, 2022. Everybody likes to see the beginning page or the top of the page. So I have to be cautious because I cannot use the addresses to show you what they sold for. So against the law, and I don't want to break the law. So you can see that there was one house that sold, listed for $799,900 and sold for $799,900. That was a mobile home on Bonita, which is not in a very good location in the city of Windsor. The rats over there are pretty big. And this was a mobile home, $79,000. You can't finance that mobile home. You have to have cash for it as well too. But then you can see that there was one that was listed for $299, it sold for $285, and then we got to $320, $320, $322, $325, $330, $340, $343, $350, $370. So the benefit is that if you have less than $400,000 to spend, if you have less than $350,000 to spend, there are still houses that are selling in the city of Windsor in your price point. And they are 2 bedrooms, generally for the most part. And then if you have $400,000 to spend or less, there's houses that are selling in your price point. If you have $500,000 or less to spend, there are houses that are selling in your price point. If you have $600,000 or less to spend, there are houses that are selling in your price point. If you have $700,000 or less to spend, there are very few houses that are selling in your price point. Or there's a lot, depending upon how much you want to spend. But you can see how this particular week, and specifically this week, we didn't have any $800,000 or $900,000 houses. We had one $1.6 million house that sold for $899. You can see that we had 8 underbids. So we had a house that was listed here for $589,900. It sold for $560,000. One that was listed for $589 and it sold for $490. One that was listed at $399 sold for $398, $399 sold for $375, $399 sold for $343, $329 sold for $322, $330 sold for $320, $299 sold for $285. So they're all very close, the underbids. We had $17.268 million worth of real estate listed for the summer months, and we sold $20,125,000. Average listing price in the city of Windsor for the week was $411,147. $411,147. Very affordable housing in the city of Windsor. I don't know anybody that can't qualify for this kind of number. Our average selling price was $479,169 in Windsor, LaSalle, Tecumseh. $480, rounded up. Average over for the week, if you take this minus that, the average over was $68,000. So the average over bid was $68,000. 8 houses sold under bid, but the rest of the houses that sold over, or close, or over, and the average over was $68,000. So if you're looking at a $300,000 house, it could be a $368,000 house in disguise. It could be a $400,000 house. There was a silly realtor that listed a house here. Where did it go? $199,900. It sold for $370,000. We can't stop a realtor from doing that because they pick the number out of thin air. There was another house down here. Well, look at this one. This one was listed for $899,900 and it sold for $1.6. Here's one $399,900 and it sold for $615. $389,900 it sold for $600. There are still houses that are mispriced in the market from the real estate perspective, from the realtor's listing of the house. They just pick a number out of thin air and put it out there and find out what it'll sell for. They all know exactly what it'll sell for. So let's look at the week prior and compare this week, which is right here this week, with the week prior. So you can see here, again, we had an $83,000 listing on Bonita. We sold 46 houses last week. We sold 42 houses this week. We had another, we had a 220, 250, 290, 290, 311, 320, 320, Again, you can see how we've got less expensive houses selling in the city of Windsor. So if you have a smaller budget, we can buy you a house. It's hugely successful. And then you can see that we did have, we didn't have any $1 million houses sell last week. This week we only had one. So we had a total of $17 million listed. This week we had a total of $17 million listed. Last week we had 8 that sold at or under ask. This week we had 8 that sold under ask. All the same, all exactly the same. Then last week we had $21 million worth of houses that sold. This week we had $20 million that sold. In the summer months, it's typical that it slows down a little bit just because there's less people looking. It's summertime. They're on vacation. I was on vacation too. Last week's average list price was $383,276. This week's average list price went up to $411,147. Last week's average selling price was $461,175. This week's average selling price was $479,169. Last week's average overbid was $77,899. This week's average overbid was $68,000. Now, what that means is you can see that the realtors were picking things out of thin air at $383, but this week the realtors were picking numbers out of thin air at $411. So they were doing better at being able to price a house based upon its expectations. And so that's why overbid dropped by about $9,000, $68,000. But average selling price increased. So it's all good. It's all steady. Now, if we compare that to 2 weeks ago, yes, 2 weeks ago we sold 62 units. Let's go 2 weeks ago here. We sold 62 units. This week we only sold 42 units. Our average list price 2 weeks ago was $508. Average list was $411. Average selling $568. Average selling $479. Don't get too upset with these numbers from 2 weeks ago. Average over was only $59,000. Average over this week was $68,000. But if you look at what we did this particular week, you can see that we had $3 million houses, $975, $965, $960, $900, $899, $850, $835. You can see that we had a lot of more expensive houses that sold. But now that interest rates have ticked up, it's harder to qualify for those expensive houses. So what we're seeing in the data sets is the data sets are coming down because we only had one $1 million house. We didn't have any $900,000 houses. We didn't have any $800,000 houses. We only had 2 $700,000 houses. And then we only had 3 $600,000 houses in this entire Windsor, Essex, Windsor, LaSalle, Tecumseh market that sold in those price points because it's hard to qualify for those kinds of numbers with this interest rate now. So at the end of the day, all of the data looks good. The only thing that's a little bit striking to me is the concept of 42 versus 62 2 weeks ago. So I believe everything is fine in the city of Windsor. I believe it's a great time to be able to be buying houses in the city of Windsor because they are less expensive and more affordable for the average Canadian. So if you're watching this from anywhere on the planet thinking about that move to Windsor, reach out, give me a jingle. My email is posted, but you can reach me at bprice4567, bprice4567@gmail.com, or you can reach out and give me a call or a text at 519-995-6145, 519-995-6145. We'd be more than happy to help you with your move to Windsor. It is a little bit busy right now. I do have some good clients that are moving to Windsor. that I'm going to be helping. I've got some listings coming up that will be going out to market as well too. And so it's looking like the second half of the year is going to be a little bit better than the first half of the year from just the perspective of the things that I have going on. But the first half of the year has been solid. It's been right on track with what last year was as well too for me. So I don't see, any downturn to this market. I do see that the data sets are becoming more affordable, which is exactly what the government wanted to do. We wanted to make houses more affordable from this price perspective, not on interest rates, because interest rates, houses are more expensive. But on the average selling price, now the government can come out and say, yeah, we've crushed the real estate market. We've made houses more affordable for people, but we've also increased the interest rate through the roof to make them less affordable for people. So it's never, when you're dealing with the government, it is never the perfect place to be. It was for a little while. Interest rates were going down and house prices at the beginning were not soaring. But we do have a huge amount of immigration coming into Canada, which is a great thing for our economy. But that's also driving up demand for housing. So it's just a matter of time before that catches back up again and prices starts to go the other way, start going back up again, even though we're at a 6% or 7% market. So that's what you're seeing in the data sets. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Everything seems pretty good to me here. If I can help in any way, reach out. Be here, happy to help. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.